Hello, I'm Glenys. I'm a dairy farmer from South Canterbury and you are watching Country 99 TV.
Hello, I'm Glenys Christian for Country 99 TV. Welcome to the second of our exclusive three-part special on trading among farmers, TAF. On June 25th, Fonterra farmers will cast their final votes on this crucial issue, which will determine the future of their cooperative. On our last program, you heard from the top men at Fonterra who are pushing for this controversial change to go through.
It stops capital from washing in and out of the balance sheet of Fonterra, so we get permanent capital. And what's all that about? It puts more money in farmers' pockets, and that's what Fonterra, the cooperative, is all about.
Now we bring you three dissenting farmers from throughout New Zealand. They may come from different parts of the country, but they are united in their opposition to TAF. They've nailed their colours to the mast and are speaking out strongly. Joining me, Glenys, a dairy farmer from Canterbury, Lindsay Blake, a dairy farmer and accountant from the Waikato, and Federated Farmers Dairy Vice Chairman Robin Barkler from the Bay of Plenty. Welcome. My first question is to you, Glenys. What's all the fuss about? Surely this is the way for Fonterra to grow in the future.
Glenys, you make TAF sound so exciting, but what the fuss is about is that farmers, including ourselves, do want a strong and growing Fonterra. I think the entire supply base is united on that point. What farmers in particular want are strong dairy farming businesses, profitable dairy farming businesses for this generation and for future generations. The problem is that TAF threatens that via the opportunity to in the very short term demutualise our co-op, and in the long term break up that collective strength. So that's what the fuss is about. So
what level of support do you have out there amongst farmers? I know you've sent out a flyer to a lot of Fonterra farmers. What sort of support base has come back from that?
It's important to understand that the concern about TAF is nationwide. It ranges across 200 cow farmers to 2,000 cow farmers. It ranges across farmers with professional backgrounds like Lindsay to farmers who have been farmers all their lives. They've asked the questions, they've evaluated the risk that this proposal presents to the future of the cooperative, the collective strength that we have, and we have found we've got overwhelming support saying that this proposal is putting our cooperative at risk. Is there not a better way forward? And a lot of farmers can see a good cooperative way forward.
Now, Lindsay, tell me, is the main objection the substance of the proposals that Glenys is talking about, or is there a real concern there about the pace of the change? It's been a very short time frame for farmers to vote on this.
It's really about the substance and the fundamentals of what this is. TAF is a demutualisation of our cooperative, and we are concerned farmers, not dissenting farmers. We're concerned farmers about our cooperative because it's the cooperative that has supported us, it's supported our forefathers, and we wish it to be intergenerational. Now, this is, as Dr. Onno van Beckham points out, what we're moving from is a cooperative to a farmer-owned business. And when you move from a collective like a cooperative, you move to a situation where you have a more individualistic outlook, and we, the farmer, will be our own worst enemy when economic drivers come in.
As an accountant, does it concern you about the complexity of some of the detail that farmers are having to sift through with these proposals?
Absolutely. I think the detail is complex, and there are many legal loopholes in this, and my concern going forward is that we will have deep-pocketed investors with lots of money that can tap away at this until they get what they're after, which is about improving their situation, which is improving the dividend and appreciating the share. And how they will do that is downward pressure on our milk price, which New Zealand Inc. will suffer from, because the milk price is 91% of what we take home, and it is the best distribution of the most efficient distribution of wealth to our nation is through the milk price, not the dividend.
What's Federated Farmers' view? I understand there are some like you who are opposed to TAF, but there are others who genuinely support it.
We reflect the wider feeling amongst the Fonterra shareholder base because that's primarily where our members come from. But in February, our council had a unanimous motion to present to the Board of Directors of Fonterra a call for a second vote. And that was due to the fact that we recognised that there'd been significant changes had developed from what was originally voted on in 2010. And that's been played down a bit, but the startling one is the fact that the ownership of the shares in the original proposal was always going to remain with the farmer, and then suddenly it had morphed into a custodian type structure that was suddenly going to hold those shares. Well, that was just one of a number of changes. And in conjunction with that was the fact that it is a complex and confusing proposal. And we felt at that stage, just this February, that there had just been a complete lack of detail put out to our members. And as I say, there was a unanimous vote saying that a second vote was required for those reasons.
Would it have satisfied the Federation if that vote had been held after the annual general meeting in Whangarei where that call was made?
I guess it was a bit early to do it then because of the fact the detail wasn't out there. And to be fair, you can't make a decision without all the information in your hands. So it's been quite a torturous process getting that. It's only just come out, some 3 weeks prior to the vote. So there is a bit of concern there that traditionally farmers like to mull over these things and talk to their neighbour over the fence. There's certainly been a big effort by the company as far as meetings and paper trails and things, but traditionally the co-op strength has been this unified way forward and it takes time. We talk at sale yards and over the back fence and when you bump into people down the street, and you can't do that in 3 weeks.
Let's go now to one of our farmers in the field and hear what they're worried about.
My question is to those people against trading amongst farmers, have they thought of the ramifications of what will happen if the vote doesn't go through, because it's pretty much a vote of no confidence in the leaders of our company?
What do you say to her, Leonie?
I say to her, at the end of the day, it's the right decision for the cooperative and the cooperative's future that matters, rather than voting on fear. There is a cooperative way forward for Fonterra. Suppliers, cooperative members have rejected proposals from the board in the past. They resoundingly rejected the proposed float in 2007. The co-op moved forward, united after that point, and got stronger. So I think it's fundamentally important that people vote from an informed base and looking ahead to the future, rather than voting out of fear of short-term ramifications.
How high do you think the vote threshold should be? Sir Henry van der Hayden has called for a good show of support, but that could mean anything, couldn't it?
Glenys, the reason a 75% threshold is normal within a cooperative for anything that relates to the capital structure of the cooperative is that we are talking about making decisions that relate to intergenerational equity, equity that was put into Fonterra by our forefathers. Dairy farmers before us had the foresight to bring the cooperatives together to create this collective strength. This generation, most of us believe, have a responsibility to leave that cooperative in place for future generations. And the absolute guts of this problem is that this scenario sets up a structure whereby there are drivers to encourage the demutualisation of that co-op, where it will become attractive, more attractive to sell out of Fonterra than to stay with Fonterra on certain occasions. So that's why the 75% vote on an issue such as this to farmers is really the only way to unify a cooperative.
I have to endorse what Leonie said. This vote has been mooted as a way of unifying the company. Now, that might mean different things to different people, but unification to me means a vast, overwhelming majority. And I think anything less than that, you're going to end up with, whichever way this vote goes, you're going to end up with a large base of disgruntled suppliers, and that's no way forward for our cooperative. We're all about unity, about a collective desire to move in the same direction, and unless we get that, this needs to be put on the back burner.
OK, Lindsay, so if there isn't that strong majority that Sir Henry van der Heyden has called for, do you think he should resign?
I think let's not get caught up in the governor's discussion, because I think really this is more than that. I think to answer that farmer's question, there is a solution, and the cooperative solution is quite simple. And I think we need to remember that we have already implemented some management into our cooperative today that has improved our situation. It has reduced our redemption risk to a manageable level. They are the restricted market value share, which has taken the pressure off and is no longer incentivising us to exit Fonterra. They are the dry share, so it's given us headroom in those drought situations for us to hold on to those shares. And the other thing is a dividend on that dry share, so our banks aren't telling us to sell out. The other things that we've implemented since then is that we've got a retention policy, which means that we're able to keep ploughing money back into our business, and we've reduced our debt to debt plus equity from 57%, the worst in our time since inception of Fonterra, we went from 57% down to 39% today, and that has put us in the best situation to go forward and to face times ahead of us.
Coming up after the break, we dig down into the nitty-gritty of why these farmers are so opposed to TAF. Stay with us. I'm Glenys Christian. We're back talking about TAF with guests Federated Farmers Robin Barkler, Waikato farmer and accountant Lindsay Blake, and Canterbury farmer Leonie Gyney. Leonie, why do you believe that control of Fonterra for farmers still isn't there with these strengthened TAF proposals? You're still talking about a demutualisation.
Glenys, what farmers need to realise, and it's difficult for them because they've only just received their information the day they received their voting papers, but what they must realise is that a vote for TAF will turn Fonterra on the 26th of June from a cooperative into a majority farmer-owned business, not cooperative, which has different drivers, with 20% of its equity contributed by non-farmer investors. So it is on the 26th of June if this goes through a demutualisation, and thereafter what the farmers must understand is that whatever you do in terms of belts and braces, or you could even legislate the size of the fund, but at the end of the day it's the farmers ourselves who will end up demutualising our own cooperative. Why? Because our focus immediately that this comes in shifts from a share that's existed in the background to look after our primary production interests to maximise our milk price, to a share that we now see as an investment vehicle. There will be opportunities with a volatile share which traders will create, like traders and speculators and investors need volatility, that's how they profit. We're inviting these people into our co-op, we're inviting an opportunity for a higher valued share on occasion. That scenario sets up a barrier to entry, an incentive to exit cooperatives, and simply changes the entire focus of what the farmers' share existed for in the first place. So the farmers themselves will see opportunities to actually sell out of Fonterra when the economic drivers are just too compelling. And the simple example is, if my share next month were worth $12, I would have to ask the question as a business person, is it economic for me to continue to own these Fonterra shares? And that is the question farmers will be asking themselves. Why in a cooperative would we set up a structure that puts that dilemma in front of farmers? That's what we do on the 26th of June with a vote for TAF.
Lindsay, the Fonterra directors, they're farmers themselves. Why would they be suggesting anything that would weaken the co-op in any way?
I think we've got to remember that there are two perspectives here. The governors, rightly, their job, their fiduciary duty is to protect the Fonterra corporate. That is their fiduciary duty. So this actually makes sense for Fonterra. But where it doesn't make sense is for the farmer supplier, because the farmer supplier wants a cooperative. We've done a lot of analysis in the background. We've done the detail. We've gone out of what we've been provided by just Fonterra, and we've looked to the world. And preeminent professors on this tell us what we're doing when we decouple the share is we sell economic ownership. The economic benefit is economic ownership sold to the unit investors. So that absolutely is a demutualisation. And it seems to me only the governors believe that we have 100% ownership and control. We have 80% and we hope to keep 80%.
What's your view, Robin?
The best safeguard we can have is what we have now, which is a share ownership directly linked to milk production. And that way you've got people that are getting up in the morning and milking cows and going out in the frost and the snow and the sun and everything else and know the business collectively working forward, as opposed to under TAF we'll have people whose connection to a cow will be the froth on their cappuccino. That will be the sole extent of it, and we're going to try and marry those two groups of people together. I think you've got to realise that regardless of the belts and braces in place, that the opposing forces that those two groups will have are going to be destructive to our business and our co-op.
Lindsay was mentioning before overseas examples where moves of this type have been made in the past. Is the Federation worried particularly about some of what's been seen in other countries happening here?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we are. We've been unable, and no one's been able to provide evidence of such a structure that has been proposed where it's been successful. Kerry is one that everybody has heard about and talked about, and it's been hugely successful for the original group of investors in it. But now Kerry milk producers are receiving the lowest milk price in Ireland, and that's happened in a very short time, in a single generation. Now, and they can't wind the clock back. They are now stuck on this new generation co-op / farmer-owned business. It's a totally different business. It's an investor-driven company with those drivers in place.
The Kerry farmers were the ones that voted themselves out of existence.
And this is what might happen here.
They started with a different structure, all right, but they started with 20% non-farmer investment interests, and the carrot was simply so high. There were 6 share conversations since Kerry took an outside equity in 1986. 6 share conversations with farmers. Every time the carrot was too attractive and the farmers voted themselves down. And farmers aren't silly, but it's the economic drivers that push them there. This is the opportunity for this generation to cash up the equity that's in Fonterra at the expense of future generations. That's what the Kerry farmers did at the expense of the future Kerry farmers. And well, you can argue about the structure of Kerry being different, but it's the driver that we're changing when we bring this into being. We're shifting the drivers into economic drivers that will encourage farmers to have to look at selling out of Fonterra.
Here's another farmer who's keen to hear from you.
I get a bit sick of people who just like to stir for the sake of stirring. But I think, you know, there is a need to have some stability there so that the company can go forward. It's a great company, done a lot of great things, and it just needs that stability.
What do you make of that, Robin?
I totally agree with him. We need the stability. What we're saying is that there is a far less risky way of doing that, that the risks in TAF do not warrant it.
We're talking about stability of Fonterra, the company's balance sheet. And in order to apparently solve this redemption risk, there is no solution. What we're doing is shifting the redemption risk to the farmer. And then with the existence of this external fund, which can, if they choose to, wind the fund up, putting the redemption risk squarely back on Fonterra's balance sheet, what we're actually doing, it's like a redemption risk merry-go-round. And in the process of achieving this redemption risk merry-go-round, we're actually introducing more volatility into our cooperative. Traders, like I said before, traders, speculators need volatility. I cannot understand how inviting people with those drivers into our cooperative creates cooperative stability. A very short-term period of stability for Fonterra, the company's balance sheet, long-term instability of our cooperative.
Lindsay, is there anything that you believe could be done to the TAF proposal that would make farmers such as yourselves who are concerned about it turn around and vote for it?
To take out the shareholder fund, ultimately, where we're all farmers, where we've linked our, like Robin said, where we have a very clear link between our milk solid and our share base. That is the fundamentals of a cooperative. So those are basically what we need. We need to exit the shareholder fund and just have farmers in our cooperative maximising our milk price.
And they could be trading their shares amongst each other as regards their particular needs on their properties and so forth. There'd be no objection to that. It's the presence of outside investors.
To be honest, that to me is not the solution. The best solution is the cooperative solution that we have to date, because that is a demutualisation of the cooperative. We've placed the redemption on farmers. That's a demutualisation in and of itself. So we need to place that back with Fonterra in a collective environment where we are protected and where we have made changes to protect our Fonterra. We are very much supporters of our Fonterra and our cooperative. Its long-term existence is what's important to us.
Coming up after the break, we hear what these anti-TAF farmers think about the role of the Fonterra Shareholders Council and the shock departure of its former chairman, Simon Cooper. Stay with us. Welcome back to our exclusive TAF special. I'm Glenys Christian. With me, my special guests, Glenys from Canterbury, Robin Barkla from the Bay of Plenty, and Lindsay Blake, a Waikato farmer and accountant. They're here to tell us why farmers should reject TAF and vote no. Now, Lindsay, turning to the Fonterra Shareholders Council, can farmers still have faith in this body and it representing their views after Simon Cooper's shock resignation?
I absolutely understand the process that they've gone through, the due diligence process. We must have faith in the due diligence process that we've undergone, and I think we must realise that they're not there yet. They can't give this the tick because the DERA legislation doesn't allow it, because of the unwind of the fund and the concern over what we go to without this. Now, we believe that under the current DERA, the cooperative share enables us to have what's in the Cooperative Act as a nominal share. So that doesn't concern us in future. I think the other point to make on the Shareholder Council, all of the bouts and braces and the fact that the Shareholder Council is going to protect us when these thresholds get reached, I personally believe that is the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, because the reality of trading places is things move fast and you can't stop them, and they trade on the other side of the world, and by the time our consensus approach kicks in, things will have moved beyond the thresholds that we would have been comfortable with. So to my mind, it'll be too slow. While that works in a cooperative consensus environment, they're on a different set of playing rules to us, the traders.
Robin, Federated Farmers, you've traditionally had a pretty good relationship with the Fonterra Shareholders Council. There's some credibility issues now in terms of there being a dissenting group still on that council who are not in favour of TAF.
I guess the council is going to have an issue if the vote goes through with a lesser majority than they themselves have voted, because it's been well publicised that they were overwhelmingly in favour of this, 89% or something. There was only very few that spoke against it. So if it comes back as something less than that, it's going to show there's a disconnect between the council and their supply base, or the shareholders, and that's, in my mind, is a very, very serious issue, because they are there as our watchdog. As a farmer, I need cast iron guarantees that my board and management is working for my best interest. I get up in the morning and I make decisions thinking that these guys are doing the best they can by me, and they're going to maximise the sustainable milk price to me, and I make my decisions based on that. And we've charged the Shareholder Council to monitor the board and management to make sure that happens. Now, if they are reading me wrong and reading the supply base wrong, I think we've got a real issue there. And the 25th will tell us that. And I think there will be some hard questions asked.
Now, Leonie, in the future, the Shareholders Council, if TAF goes ahead, they're going to have a pretty strong and powerful role in terms of any future changes. Do you think they've got what it takes to be able to shepherd the way forward?
The power will sit with those who are valuing our share. The people who are trading will value the share. It's unrealistic to think that the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff that Lindsay referred to will look after the farmer's interests at the end of the day. And here is just one example of the mixed messages with respect to that, the influence of those traders that we've had from Fonterra. For so long we've been told that we apparently need this external fund for price discovery, and I've heard directors say it a number of times, we need this fund for price discovery. Apparently we don't have enough depth in our farmer market. And many farmers at the recent meetings have raised the question, they've come to the realisation, hey, these guys are actually going to value what was our cooperative share, which is no longer a cooperative share, rather than the farmers. And they've asked that question because they're concerned about that, about investors valuing our cooperative share. Because the farmers are concerned, the most recent argument at the 11th hour that we're now hearing from our leadership is, no, the investors won't value the share, the farmers will value the share because the volume of trading will be greater in the farmer market. Now, if that is the case, if the volume of trading is such in the farmer market that the farmers will value the share, what did we need this fund for in the first place? Because the argument all along was that we need an external fund to value the share. As soon as the farmers expressed concern, they're worried about investors valuing the share, we're told, no, the farmer will value the share. So which is it? This is just one example of so many conflicting messages. And it's simply disingenuous to argue that the farmers will now value the cooperative share with the structure. Simply disingenuous. It doesn't work.
You know, think of an auction room where you have a group full of farmers and they all understand what the value of the farm they're looking at is, and you have some other investors with deeper pockets. How many players in that room do they need to drive the price up? Is it the group or is it two willing players? That's what the demand and supply is all about.
Let's hear from our final farmer.
My question is this. If we don't go ahead with TAF, then what is the other plan to reduce redemption risk?
Is there a plan B that Fonterra's got up its sleeve?
There are definite mechanisms that are already in place that significantly reduce that redemption risk. And I think the farmers need to realise there's more than one type of redemption. Fonterra's talking about capital redemption. Well, a really serious threat under this proposal is milk redemption. That farmers will go away from producing milk because of what Leonie said. The share price hits $12. The commercial decision will be, heck, do I need this 100,000 shares at $12, or can I put that money to better use somewhere else? And I would suggest, take that money, the milk supply will dry up, and I think Fonterra is at real risk of having a flood of milk redemption, and it needs to be a consideration that farmers take into account.
Now it's time for us to summarise views. So, Lindsay, I'd just like to come to you first. Why should farmers reject TAF? Just give us the top point.
I think the top point is that TAF is a demutualisation of our cooperative. Our cooperative was always about maximising our milk price. Maximising our milk price looks after the stepping stones in our industry, the share milkers as well as the farm owners. Once we move away from that, outside tensions will drive us as far away from a cooperative as you can go, and it changes us from a collective focus to an individual focus.
Leonie, moving on to you.
My concern is with the entire concept of TAF, that the concept of putting a proposal on the table that shifts drivers within a cooperative. It simply will not retain a cooperative down the line. It will not retain cooperative thinking amongst farmers. It will change the thinking of farmers, and the farmers at the end of the day will demutualise their own co-op. In the long run, after that's happened, it's after that point that the non-farmer investors get the opportunity to exert downward pressure on milk price. Downward pressure on milk price is bad for farmers, it's bad for future generations, it's bad for New Zealand, it's bad for New Zealand Inc.
And Robin.
Farmers need to think of this in the terms of a cooperative restructure. This is more than a capital restructure. This is going to change the way their cooperative acts and behaves and treats them from the 26th onwards if this gets a yes vote. And they need to go into that with their eyes wide open. This is a cooperative structure debate, more so than just a capital structure debate.
There you go. The case against TAF from some of the farmers who own New Zealand's largest company. The decision, whichever way it goes, will affect all of us. Thanks to my guests, Leonie Glenys, a Canterbury farmer, Lindsay Blake, a Waikato accountant and farmer, and Robin Barkler, Federated Farmers Dairy Vice Chairman, who farms in the Bay of Plenty. And thanks to you for watching at home. For more information on TAF, check out your latest dairy exporter or head to the website www.dairyexporter.co.nz. And remember to tune in tomorrow for the final session of our exclusive 3-part series on TAF. You'll hear direct from Fonterra's Chief Executive Teo Spearings, Labour's Agricultural Spokesman Damien O'Connor, Federated Farmers Dairy Vice Chairman Andrew Hoggard, and business commentator Fran O'Sullivan. They'll put their considered opinions to you as we bring you the final say on the TAF vote. I'm Glenys Christian. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Robin Barkler, a dairy farmer from Onipu in the Bay of Plenty, and you are watching Country 99 TV.